Well, he's working hard to win over Christian voters, so Donald Trump met with hundreds of evangelical leaders yesterday. He's going to need that crucial voting bloc to have a real shot at winning the White House.
CBN's David Brody was inside that private meeting in New York and brings us this look at what people had to say after it was over.
Times Square always hustles and bustles, but just blocks away, the Marriott Marquis Hotel buzzed with activity of another kind, a private meeting between Donald Trump and evangelical leaders. It was a private event, but CBN News was permitted inside to observe. From mega-church pastors to longtime stalwarts, they heard Trump speak out about defending religious liberty, including his desire to get rid of IRS restrictions that muzzle political talk from the pulpit. Trump said a repeal may be, quote, my biggest contribution to Christianity. In that room, among the 900 evangelical leaders or so, there were quite a few that were not for Trump going into the meeting. After the meeting, well, some minds are changing.
The ball has moved forward a little bit, and I appreciate Mr. Trump's willingness to reach out to the evangelical community. After hearing him today, I will prayerfully consider it as a possibility in light of the alternative.
That alternative is Hillary Clinton. Trump made clear his Supreme Court picks would make them proud, unlike what Clinton might bring to the table. Trump also talked about how evangelicals need to band together because their rights and values are under attack. What pleased some attendees was that Trump didn't appear to make any major mistakes or give reason for pause.
I can't remember any time during the several hours this morning that his answer disappointed or there was chagrin about it.
Trump's senior advisor Sarah Huckabee also attended and spoke with CBN News.
He did something that most Republican nominees in the past have refused to do, and that's walk into this room and be willing to sit down, take their questions, and really interact with them in a very big way.
With some evangelicals still wary, the brash outsider will need more outreach. But for now, it seems to be working.
As it pertains to the evangelical vote and the candidacy of Donald J. Trump, today's meeting may very well be a tipping point.
Pro-family leader Sammy Rodriguez says he knows plenty of pastors who were skeptical before the meeting, but inside something changed.
After hearing his commitment, his very well-defined, articulated commitment to religious liberty and life, the Supreme Court especially, I think you saw a number of the same pastors walk out going, that's what I needed to hear.
And that's something the Trump campaign needed to hear after a rough few weeks of headlines. It will be important for them to build on any progress here by getting evangelicals to move beyond words and work actively for Trump among their flocks. David Brody, CBN News, in New York City.
Well, you know, the evangelicals have been one of the most reliable voting blocs. I mean, you know, they used to say organized labor was the organized bloc for the Democrats. Well, as far as the Republicans go, the evangelicals have been stronger than any other group. And they stick together with the party. Sometimes they just don't vote. I mean, that's happened in several elections. But I think this time there's so much at stake. Well, while the evangelicals and Trump were having a little love fest up there in New York, Hillary Clinton was hitting Trump hard on the campaign trail. She was speaking, as I recall, from Columbus, Ohio. And it was one of the most flat speeches. There was no drama in it, no pacing. It was just like pablum. And yet she rehearses and says what a great job that Obama has done with the economy. And the economy is some of the worst recoveries we've ever had in our history. And the jobless rate is terribly high, the unemployment rate, I should say. And we're looking at 2 to 3%, actually not even 3%, about 2.5% GDP growth, which is just appallingly low. That's not something to run on or brag about. John Jessup has that story.
Pat, Hillary Clinton blasted Trump's economic plans in the key swing state of Ohio, pointing to an analysis that claims they would cost 3.5 million American jobs. She's trying to stop Trump from wooing working-class voters in battleground states like Ohio, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Charlene Aaron has that story.
Clinton called Donald Trump's economic policies dangerous and warned that he could bankrupt the country if elected president. In her speech in Columbus, Ohio, Clinton questioned Trump's temperament to guide the economy and repeatedly pointed to his business record, including bankruptcies, as evidence of how he would treat small businesses and working families.
Just like he shouldn't have his finger on the button, he shouldn't have his hands on our economy. He's written a lot of books about business. They all seem to end at chapter 11.
Trump shot back, saying he knows how to use debt in business.
So what I've done is I've used brilliantly the laws of the country, and not personally, just corporate. And if you look at people like myself that are at the highest levels of business, they've used, many of them have done it many, many times.
And in a tweet, he said, "Crooked Hillary refuses to say that she will be raising taxes beyond belief. She will be a disaster for jobs and the economy."
But the presumptive Democratic nominee has problems of her own. Russian hackers are believed to have breached the computers of the Clinton Foundation.
A hacker using the moniker Guccifer 2.0 leaked documents taken from the Democratic National Convention during a hack last week. Bloomberg News reports the attacks on the foundation's network, along with those of the Democratic Party and Clinton's presidential campaign, add to concerns about her digital security, while the FBI is still investigating her use of a personal email server while she was Secretary of State. And Trump is promising even more of a full assault on Clinton in a speech today. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. Pat, back to you.
I was reading today something that really is appalling. Maybe it came out of that Gawker hack, but nevertheless, when Hillary made some of the speeches she made, she got paid about $200,000, $250,000 a speech, some of them as high as $500,000 or $600,000. Then she said, I've got to have a Gulfstream 4 or better airplane. I've got to have first-class tickets for some of my other people to go along. I've got to have a presidential suite in whatever hotel I stay, plus adjoining rooms. And it went down the list. You say, dear me, what kind of demands does this woman make for making one speech? But it's all out there, and the Gawker is going to be in the public. But this is incredible. And the amount of money that has come in, she can't attack Trump on account of Wall Street because she is in the pocket of Wall Street. And she and the foundation have garnered hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's been pointed out some of them are pretty dicey characters that have given money to the Clinton Foundation. It's going to be a tough one to overcome. And the recent poll indicated that in terms of fixing the economy, that Trump is, way ahead of Hillary on that. They're almost neck and neck in other polls. But in that particular poll, which may be crucial in this election, he scores much higher than she does. Now, there's something else that concerns us, and that is the rogue regime in North Korea, Kim Jong-un. And we have allowed them to get away with stuff that they agreed to stop doing. And John has that story, and it should shock every one of us.
That's right, Pat. Turning overseas, North Korea has launched 2 more ballistic missiles. U.S. and South Korean military officials say one failed, but the other, which reportedly flew about 620 miles, was a big step in the regime's development of a powerful missile intended to reach U.S. bases in the Pacific. This comes as diplomats from America and North Korea are attending a 6-nation security forum in Beijing. U.S. officials say at this point, Pat, there are no plans for talks.
They weren't supposed to enrich uranium. They weren't supposed to build up supplies of plutonium. They weren't supposed to have launch delivery vehicles. They weren't supposed to do this, that, and the other. And we have let them get away with all of it, haven't called them on it. But the thing that we should be concerned of, we have done something about it. I'm looking forward to having another guest to talk about it. What is called the electronic magnetic pulse, the EMP. First of all, if there is a major solar flare and an EMP that comes out of the sun, it could fry most of the electronic devices in the entire United States of America and maybe throughout the world. However, they have discovered, experts have discovered, that one nuclear device exploded in the stratosphere over the mid part of America could render us close to the Stone Age, would take out our cars, it would take out our banking, it would take out our food supply, it would take care of almost every type of industry that runs on any type of electronics. And of course, it would render our military almost helpless. This is a major, major thing that we should do, and we're not, instead of worrying about climate change, which may happen in 40 or 50 years or never, we should be dealing with a threat that is right at hand. And all this group of madmen in North Korea have got to do is work a little bit longer on the delivery mechanism. They claim they've got some nuclear bombs, and they send one up there and detonate it above, somehow in the stratosphere above the landmass of the United States, and we are toast. This is a very serious problem, and it's one that should be addressed at the highest levels of our government, and they shouldn't just address it, they ought to do something about it. Okay, well, coming up, the United Nations, and I mean the European Union, has been a disaster, filled with regulation, bureaucracy, waste, and the usual stuff. Now they're being overwhelmed by refugees, and they've got the bailouts. They have to bail out Greece. They have to probably bail out Portugal or Spain. They have to bail out possibly Italy. There are all kinds of weak sisters in the European Union, and the strong countries like Germany and Great Britain and so forth are going to have to pick up the tab. So the British voters are saying maybe not. And what's been called Brexit, the British exit, is going to be voted on tomorrow. So here's John with that story.
Pat, that's right. British voters will decide tomorrow whether to leave the European Union. If Britain does leave, some fear it could put the future of the entire EU in jeopardy. Dale Hurd has that story from London.
To leave or not to leave? That is the question before British voters Thursday. They'll vote on what's being called Brexit, Britain's exit from the European Union. After years of feeling like they were being yanked around by Brussels, the Brits now have a chance to yank the rug out from under the European Union.
The Eurozone is a catastrophe. The project doesn't work. I want us to get back our independence.
UK Independence Party leader Nigel Farage, one of the leaders in the Leave camp, says the EU has made the British poor, even as the nation has given more authority and control of its borders to Brussels.
This should be a British passport. It says European Union on it, all right? I think, to make this country safer, we need to get back British passports so that we can check anybody else coming in to this country.
Under EU rules, Britain cannot limit migration from within Europe. And many Brits feel their tiny island has been overwhelmed by migrants. On the coast, longtime Dover business owner Brian Hall says the town is going down the drain.
You know, I've not had a problem with, we've had Poles here and hard working, but we've just got the percentage of them in the town is just becoming too much, you know, and it's dragged the town down.
We used to be Great Britain, now we're just Britain, so really we should get the great back and sort ourselves out, really, shouldn't we?
The Remain side warns that leaving the European Union will be an economic catastrophe for Britain.
I think the biggest risk we can take is to pull out of the EU, pull out of the single market, damage our businesses, damage jobs, and there'll be fewer opportunities for our children and grandchildren.
But the biggest damage from a Brexit could be to the European Union. This German economist called Brexit a nightmare scenario for the markets. He says the markets are afraid of Brexit because that will raise the question of whether the EU will break up.
And a happy Europe will be a democratic Europe of sovereign states who are good neighbours in the same street.
But a Brexit could cause a political and economic earthquake in the headquarters of the European Union, and a domino effect in which other nations leave, possibly triggering a collapse of the European Union. Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
Pat, any predictions on how the Brexit vote will play out?
It's too close to call right now. It's right level. You know, the withdrawal. They've got two names. One Remain and the other Withdraw. But the Withdraw votes were about 10 points up. Now it's about even.
Do you agree with the Queen that Britain should get out?
Absolutely. I think the European Union has become a bureaucratic nightmare, which is always what happens when you get a bunch of high-paid bureaucrats sitting around tables out of touch with reality, and they make these decrees and they impose them on all the people of the that union. And it's not working. It's in the United States, and it's not working. If they had something like we had, maybe it would work, but they'll have to go a long way. But I don't vote in the British election, but if I were, I'd vote to get out. Because I'm an Anglophile at heart, and I think, rule Britannia. Okay, what's next?
I really feel for them. I like what the one guy said. We used to be Great Britain. Now we're just Britain. We need to get the great back. Sounds familiar.